It's happening. The Athletics are promoting their top prospect, Nick Kurtz. Welcome into an emergency edition of Fantasy Baseball today on Monday, April 21st. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White. Good to see you, Scott. It wasn't too long ago we were podcasting, but we are back again, and it's been a very busy time for prospect promotions. This weekend, we got Chandler Simpson with the Rays, Luke Keeschel with the Twins. Just yesterday, we learned that the Marlins are promoting Agustin Ramirez, and now we get an even bigger name. The A's are promoting first baseman Nick Kurtz, and he has been the talk of the minor league season thus far, hitting a .321, 7 home runs, 1040 OPS, just massive exit velocities at AAA. Scott, talk to me about the profile and whether or not Nick Kurtz is a must-add player in fantasy.
Well, I always answer the second question first, and so I'll start there. Must add, yes. And I don't often say that about prospect promotions anymore because in recent years, the learning curve has become much steeper for a promoted prospect. And oftentimes that first stint in the majors doesn't go well, and it ends up being a waste of time, a waste of resources. But the upside for Kurtz and the readiness that he's shown throughout his time in the minors, I think makes him the exception. And across the board, regardless of shallow league, deep league, head-to-head, roto, you pick him up and you hope for the best. I mentioned readiness. He's played just 32 games in the minors. And we were making a big deal last year. Wyatt Langford seemed to make a very quick climb to the majors after being drafted just the year before. He got 44 games. So Kurtz 32, Wyatt Langford 44. Kurtz is arriving even faster than Langford did. But it was a similar climb through that, just dominated at every stop. Just showed that he's doesn't really have much to accomplish in the minors, and so now he's getting a shot in the majors. What kind of player does Kurtz profile as? Well, the comp I've most often been using is Matt Olson, and maybe that's just because he's a 6'5" left-handed hitting first baseman for the Athletics. No, that's not the only reason why, but very good power profile, power that translates to all fields. A very disciplined hitter, takes his walks. I think the impact here could be considerable. Now, there are ways it could go wrong, of course. Like I said, the learning curve is steep, and one thing we see in the data for Kurtz during his little bit of time at AAA, where this kind of data is available, is the zone contact rate's pretty low. He swings and misses a fair amount in the zone. Chase rate is fine. Like I said, he seems to know the difference between a ball and a strike, but he can swing and miss some in the zone. Interestingly, Matt Olson does that too. So it's not like a death knell or anything. But if Kurtz were to go wrong in some way, that might be it. There's also going to be a bit of a playing time crunch with the Athletics because, of course, they already have an emergent first baseman, one of the biggest ones this year, in Tyler Soderstrom. And Kurtz, like I said, is first baseman. So what do they do about that? Brent Rooker at DH. Well, we've seen him play outfield some recently. They've also floated the idea of maybe having Soderstrom handle some third base. I don't think we'll see that very often, but they are talking about using a rotation of players to get everyone in the lineup. It does add pressure, though, for Kurtz to perform right away, because if he doesn't, they're not going to deal with that lineup headache indefinitely. Like, he's not performing. So, I'd say that's the basic rundown.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the A's lineup right now, they have Gio Urshela at third base. They have Miguel Andujar in left field, right? So these are veteran kind of retread type players. Totally fine players to have on their bench at this point, but not really ones that you need to be blocking prospects. It's not a perfect fit, having Brent Rooker in the outfield, not regarded as a great defender. Soderstrom, can he play third base? I don't know. We might find out over the next couple of weeks.
I don't think he has as a professional yet.
Yeah. So
majors or minors.
It's an interesting fit, but to get all these guys in the lineup, and speaking of that lineup, I mean, it could turn out to be a very, very good one over the next couple of years with Lawrence Butler and Rooker and Soderstrom and Langoliers doing his thing. And now you insert Nick Kurtz into this mix as well. Scott, the $1 million question, and I guess we could talk this one out together. because it is a tough one. Where do we rank Nick Kurtz? So trying to figure out among this emergent group of first basemen so far this season. We've had the aforementioned Tyler Soderstrom, and this has been a huge talking point all season long. Ben Rice, who's breaking out for the Yankees. Spencer Torkelson, who looks like he's bouncing back this season. Jonathan Aranda, who looks like he's breaking out for the Rays and now playing against left-handed pitching as well. Michael Busch has picked things back up. Rhys Hoskins had a big week too. So we have all these kind of first basemen that are that were available early on, but now we're trying to figure out, like, do we drop any of them for Nick? So let's kind of talk it back and forth here and try and figure out what's your initial read. What's your gut telling you on where to put Nick Kurtz in the rankings?
Well, let me start by saying I feel like this conversation is only relevant for shallower leagues and mainly just head-to-head leagues where you don't have that extra corner infield spot to fill, like in Roto. So if you get into leagues that deep, then of course you can find another way to get all of them on your roster. However many you happen to have at this point, you wouldn't have to consider dropping, say, a Michael Busch for Nick Kurtz. So I actually wrote about, it just came out this morning, I wrote about 6 of these emergent first basemen this year, and I did my best to rank them, the 6, excluding Nick Kurtz. And this is how it came out. Tyler Soderstrom 1, Jonathan Aranda, now that we're seeing him play some against lefties, 2, Ben Rice 3, helps that he bats leadoff against righties. Spencer Torkelson 4, Kyle Manzardo 5. You didn't even mention he's very close to getting first base eligibility. Kyle Manzardo 5 and Michael Busch 6. So again, it was Soderstrom, Aranda, Rice, Torkelson, Manzardo, Busch. I am not that attached to that ranking. Just in the last couple weeks, it's changed a few times. I don't feel like there are obvious red flags for any of them, and they all have pedigree or minor league track records such that it's feasible they could keep doing this or something close to this. So probably not all of them will, and that's, you'd hate to end up with the one that drops off, but that's where we stand with those 6. So where does Nick Kurtz fit in those 6? He has the highest pedigree of all of them. He is a top of the line prospect.
Well, Torkelson had that pedigree too.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. He was a former number 1 overall pick, but he's also kind of lower on the list because he has so much failure on his resume. Yeah, so I think I could definitely say Kurtz ahead of the last 2 there, Busch and Manzardo. Busch has yet to start against a left-hander this year, and Manzardo. The thing about both Busch and Manzardo, why they're at the bottom of the list, is their peak exit velocities just don't compare to these others. I don't think either has hit a ball 110 miles per hour in the majors yet. So that does make their power harder to come by. It's not always a clean translation, exit velocities to home runs, but generally speaking, the harder you hit the ball, the better chance you have for home runs. So that gives them more downside risk, Busch and Manzardo. So I can definitely put Kurtz ahead of them. It's the other 4, Soderstrom, Aranda, Rice, and Torkelson. You're not putting him ahead of Soderstrom, given that he leads the majors in home runs. Like, you're just not dropping that guy. There's no way. I could see, just in the interest of, okay, this is one of the very best prospects in baseball. It's a shallow league, so you need as much impact as possible. Like, just putting Kurtz as high as second on this list from that perspective. No guarantees, obviously, but in shallower leagues, you need to sell out as hard as you can for upside, and Kurtz, just by nature of his pedigree, would seem to have the most upside. I don't know that I really want to drop Aranda or Rice for him, or even Torkelson. I mean, you were making the case for Torkelson before we started recording. I don't know if you want to go ahead and do that now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the fact that we've seen Torkelson have a high-end fantasy season before. I mean, just a couple of years removed from having a 30-plus home run season. Now, it's not a guarantee that he's going to get back to that. It's also not a guarantee that Nick Kurtz is going to perform right away either. So I would rather bank on someone who I've seen do it before and who's already off to a great start. Torkelson hitting 288, 7 home runs, 21 RBI, and OPS over 1,000. So for me, I think I would rank him fourth. I think I would rank Nick Kurtz behind Soderstrom, Aranda, well, no, maybe even fifth. Aranda, Torkelson, Soderstrom.
Ben Rice is the one you're missing there.
Ben Rice too, yeah. Ben Rice I'm a little bit more iffy about just because, and I know I'm thinking down the line, I do have this concern about once Giancarlo Stanton is back, it's like, wait, how do they figure these things out? But, life finds a way, as we know. So I have a concern over that.
And I think we have some time. Has he started hitting yet? I think he has to go through a whole spring progression still.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the earliest, we're probably like a month away from seeing Stanton. Late May, if anything.
So, I think that's worth bringing up for Ben Rice. I'm not sure it really factors in the decision making. I think one way or another, you have to pick up Kurtz is what it comes down to. And I really don't want to drop Aranda or Rice or Torkelson. I would drop my last starting pitcher rather than dropping one of them. I would come up with some other bench player to drop. Even if I already had first base and my utility spot filled, I would want to give myself the best chance at having as many breakthrough hitters as I could. And obviously, if they all end up clicking, then that's trade bait. That's good trade bait. And it's probably going to land you in a trade a better pitcher than whatever one you happen to be dropping now. So I don't really think your decision could come down to this. But I know the way some of these casual leagues are. And if you're the one most aggressively playing the waiver wire, there's a chance you've grabbed a couple of these guys. There's a chance you drafted Bryce Harper as your starter and grabbed Soderstrom and grabbed Rice. And then what do? And
that is a great problem to have.
That's a great problem to have.
Assuming you're in a trade league, that is a great problem to have. Obviously, if there's no trading or if you play in the NFBC, all right, I guess you just kind of play the matchups and you figure it out from there. And it's going to be tough. But in a trading league, it is a great problem to have. Just acquire as much talent as humanly possible.
I don't know that we've actually said what Kurtz's production has been in the minors so far. So I mentioned he played 32 games. And in those 32 games, he slashed 336, 432, 689. That's with an 1120 OPS. That's what it adds up to. 11 home runs in those 32 games, 10 doubles, only 36 strikeouts. So he's managed to keep that under control. And I just wanted to put those out there to give you all the more reason to be excited here for Nick Kurtz.
Let's talk through just some other first base eligible players that we would drop openly for Nick Kurtz. So like Michael Toglia, that's without a question, right? Like you could drop him for Nick Kurtz. What about Ryan Mountcastle, Scott? Someone we liked as a sleeper this season, but is just off to a dreadful start. Would you drop Ryan Mountcastle for Nick Kurtz?
Yeah, I would. I still have faith in Ryan Mountcastle coming around, but I don't think the kind of shallow leagues we're talking about that the upside really compares there.
Again, with that caveat, shallower leagues, Yandy Diaz.
Yeah.
Paul Goldschmidt.
Yeah, I'd do that.
What about Jake Berger, who's off to a terrible start? Which is another interesting one because, you're kind of hoping that Nick Kurtz becomes a Jake Berger-like player, obviously with better on-base percentage, but Jake Berger, we're expecting around 30 home runs. We're hoping that Nick Kurtz can get to that level.
Right, but it's not just the home runs. It's not just batting average either. I don't know that Kurtz will be a standout for batting average. That's kind of why I use the Matt Olson comparison. Like I said, some in-zone contact issues, and maybe in the long run, he's just a 260, 270 guy, or not. Maybe he's more like 280. It's the range of outcomes is for any player just emerging in the majors with this kind of upside. If the upside is known to be high, then the range of outcomes is fairly wide. But obviously, Jake Berger, even in a best case scenario, we're not talking about him as an early rounder in fantasy. And Kurtz does have that kind of upside. How likely is he to meet it as a rookie? I would say it's less likely than I would have said for a prospect of his caliber getting called up 5 years ago. But it's in the realm of possibility. So if you're in the sort of league where it's even a consideration, drop Mountcastle, drop Berger. If that's even a thought that can cross your mind, it tells me it's a shallow league, and it tells me you need to go for the potential high draft pick bat.
And the last name I have to ask, Tristan Casas. Do you drop Tristan Casas for Nick Kurtz? Shallower format.
Yeah.
But we're probably not going to, which is confusing. Like, we're probably not going to rank it that way, right? Because if we rank it that way, then that means we have Nick Kurtz ranked as a top 12 first baseman. But it's very nuanced, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Right, because the rankings are one size fits all. Apart from scoring format, they're not taking into account depth so much. So they have to be a little more measured than somebody out there who knows their league and knows exactly what they're giving up when they make that kind of move. But the thing about Casas, the thing I keep coming back to with Casas is the main thing we like about him is pedigree also. He did have that second half of 2023 where it looked like it all came through and he was emerging as a stud bat, but he hasn't come close to that since then. And so that's over a year ago at this point, and it's not like there's a lot in the track record to give me confidence that, okay, he's for sure going to over time regress in a good way to being this. I can't say that with confidence for Casas. So in a shallow league, would I rather take a flyer on Kurtz? If that's really what it took, and hopefully it won it. Hopefully, like I said, for those other first basemen, the Ben Rices and Jonathan Arandas of the world, I drop my worst pitcher or whatever. Instead, I do whatever it took to keep them all on my roster. But if it ultimately came down to Casas or Kurtz in that shallow league scenario, I'd probably roll the dice on Kurtz at this point.
All right. Again, the Athletics are calling up their top prospect, Nick Kurtz, 22 years old. He was the 4th overall pick in last year's draft. He's been the talk of the minor league season, hitting for a bunch of power, 7 home runs already down at AAA in just 20 games this season. Lots to be excited about. Go add Nick Kurtz if he is available in your league. We are going to wrap there. For Scott, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to like and follow, subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already, and we will be back again later tonight. Bye-bye.